Hello and welcome everyone to the Evolve podcast. I am your host, Tanya Penny, illness and trauma guide, spiritual alchemist, author of the Connect with the Divine You book and journals. And I'm excited to have Rachael O'Mara with us today. We are going to be diving into the topic of pausing to be in your flow. Yes, so important for this time on the planet. So for those of you that are new to Rachael, she is an executive coach renowned for empowering successful leaders with proven tools to excel. With over a decade at Google, she brings invaluable insights into effective leadership. As co-founder of SIC, S-I-C Venture Studio, Rachael drives innovation at the intersection of leadership and entrepreneurship. Her acclaimed book, Pause, is a pivotal resource for career growth. Featured in the New York Times, WSJ.com, HBR, and on TEDx stages, Rachael inspires audiences worldwide with her transformative approach to leadership and personal development. Thanks for being here today, Rachael.
Hey, Tanya, thanks for having me. I love being here again. I know you and I connected years and years ago, and here we are, right back here.
I know, isn't it crazy? We were catching up before the official recording started, and we think we met like 6 or 7 years ago. We're not really sure how, but maybe on one of my summits. And so it was fun catching up. And Rachael lives in Florida, you guys. And as many of you know, Florida just had a really big whooping. And Rachael, of course, is, thank goodness, okay. But let's just take a moment to send out compassion, love, and prayers for all those people in Florida that were affected by this hurricane. These natural disasters, how do I want to say this in a way that is, I guess, PC? We're really all being given really big wake-up calls right now, and natural disasters are part of them, unfortunately. So, a lot of things are happening to bring us closer together and to bring us into connection and into that place of being supportive of each other versus that separation, So big stuff. But Rachael, let's dive into the power of pausing, right? So why is, in your own language, what is pausing and why is it so important?
Right. Yes. So I wrote the book Pause, actually a few years ago in 2017, around when we met, I think. And it was based on my burnout of Google. I was getting feedback. I wasn't doing great. And probably like many of your listeners, I was a high achiever and had been successful my entire life. And for whatever reason, I felt like I was hitting my head against the wall and I wasn't doing well. So long story short, I burned out. I took a 3-month unpaid break. I returned and I worked another 10 years at Google. And I got a new role aligned more with my strengths. And I felt compelled to write a book about my experience and all of these tools that I had started to learn after the pause when I started studying emotional intelligence at the Wright Graduate University in Chicago. So I realized a pause is an intentional shift in behavior. That's how I define a pause. And it can look like so many different things. So you being here, just taking time to listen to this episode is a pause. It's an intention. You brought your conscious mind to do something different than just being on autopilot somewhere. And that's really all it is. It could look and be very different for each of us. But my whole premise of the book and why I burned out is because I really didn't intentionally shift anything. I was just kind of in victim mode. I didn't understand why things weren't going well because I was such a high achiever. I had like an MBA. I was a national rowing champion. And there was just this accolade list that I was so perplexed. And looking back now, I know it was because I wasn't present. I was either always in my head or thinking about the past. And that's really what I think is important to recognize as well, is that if we're not present, then we kind of keep getting hit with the same thing until we learn the lesson.
Well, yeah. And, I call this pattern that, I think prevents us from pausing the pretending to be superhuman. And it's that, we're conditioned. We're conditioned from a very young age that work equals worth. right? What we do, like, and you know, when we meet people, one of the first questions we ask, besides, you know, what our names are, is like, what do you do for a living? Right. So it's like all of this tie to work equals worth, and we are on the treadmill, you know, or the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it. Like, I think we
Tanya.
get on it at a really young age, especially now.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, and that was me. My whole identity was really wrapped up in work, and I had other things going on too, but when that's stripped away, whether it's a layoff or the company shuts down or you decide it's just not for you anymore, it kind of brings up a lot of unanswered questions and fear. So you're almost operating sometimes out of fear and you don't really know what's the best. So you're just panicking or thinking, no, I got to make a decision right now because God knows I can't just do nothing
Yeah.
or be.
And I think that it's interesting. We were talking about COVID before we started the recording too, and how for a lot of people that actually supported them to pause, right?
Well, they
That,
called it a global pause. I mean,
yeah,
I think I wrote an article in it and I just was like, thank you, world, for recognizing this power of pause because it was everyone's intentional shift. We had to shift under duress of a global pandemic.
yeah.
And it was literally being forced in whether you wanted it or not. And we came all out on the other side and that's okay. But at the same time, uh, we all have different choices and we forget that. I think in COVID, we had choices even in COVID. How do you want to show up when your 10th Zoom call of the day is kind of feeling exhausted?
I'm glad that you brought up choice. You know,
Yes.
we are, many of us are at a choice point, and we are really being called, I feel, especially this month. I actually pulled a card for I pull a card for the month, and it's divine justice. And we are at a choice point, meaning remembering that we are powerful co-creators. And we've been, you know, ran by all these limiting belief systems and fears that you're talking about. And it's time that we actually realize, oh my gosh, yes, I've been living from survival fear versus from this place of thriving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, pausing, right? Whether it's 5 minutes, you know, depending on where people are at, right? And we'll talk more about tools and what it can look like in a little bit. But yeah, I think I was laughing to myself this morning because I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I take a lot of pause. And yet I'm being guided to take even more. Hence, not being able to use my phone this morning, right?
Yeah.
Like I realized that on my walks lately, I've been actually on my phone working. And I couldn't do that this morning while I was on my walk because my phone,
Yeah.
I didn't have service. And I was like, oh my God, I got sucked back in again. I didn't realize it.
Interesting, right? I know. And it's such a good reminder. So I've studied a lot of around choice and what I know is we always have a choice. Even when we don't have the choice, we have the choice to know we don't have the choice. Like there's just always a choice. And like when you go into those layers, but it's just so easy to forget. And we get conditioned out of it. Maybe as a woman, maybe as someone who's always on 24/7, like we just forget. So I love that you had that reminder today. And presence is to me the pinnacle of what is critical and essential to a pause. If you're not present, you're just going to miss whatever you are. I actually tell my students that if you're out for a nature walk, I use that example. I say, if you're on your phone, are you present? And the answer is no, because we're not. We're in our heads. We're in our thinking mind. We're not in our sensory perception and stuff like that. But we all are human too. So I think it's about finding what works for each of us. And that's why I don't have a prescription. I don't have like the best pause. It's actually all around what is it that works for you, Tanya? Like you're going to have the sweet spot that you're going to find, but you have to experiment because you won't know unless you try it. And it
Well,
might
and
be one day and then one the next. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you said that. I actually made that a point in one of my October video, I think, that we what has worked for us in the past, or maybe it didn't work for us, but we thought it was. But now with our new awareness that many of us have right now, our new consciousness, what worked for us in the past isn't going to work for us moving forward, right? It's not necessarily going to work for us moving forward. And I think we're so used to comparing what other people do to what we do. We're all different, right? So what we need in terms of balance, we're talking about pausing and balance and, and finding your flow. It's going to be different for every single one of us. And it might look different every day.
Formula. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So why do you feel like it's so important at this time on the planet with all the global stuff? And, we've got the election coming up in the US, which is really triggering quite a few people. So yeah, why do you feel it's so important right now to do this pausing? Yeah. Oh, and you're muted again for some reason. Let me ask to unmute you again. Here we go.
Sorry, I coughed and I put myself on mute. So that was my own doing. And then I realized I couldn't come off. No worries. So why is pausing so important now? That's the question, right?
Yeah. Why now? I mean, it's always important, but why is now even more important?
Super. I think this is tied into your theme, actually, evolving. Like you said, what got you here won't get you there. This is Einstein saying this, by the way. You can't solve a problem with the current knowledge that you have or the current intelligence. We've heard that, right? I don't think I'm paraphrasing it, but Albert Einstein is credited with that. And so to me, this is a world and a paradigm of always on 24/7. And it's been like this since I'd say at least, I mean, I was a child of the 70s, 80s and Gen X and stuff. And I think, for me, we didn't have computers growing up, but now in the 90s and onward, I'd say it's been a different story and we are changing that paradigm. So it is always on. We're tethered to our devices. We have global meetings in the work world. And there's a lot of demands, whether it's family or work or anything. So the world has shifted that we have to create new boundaries. We have to come up with a world that works for you and all of us. And it's up to each of us to be our own advocate. And that's the part I think that pausing comes in, where if you don't pause to really know where you are, right? To me, it's self-awareness. Hey, oh wait, how am I doing right now? And me, like my case is they burned out. I never once asked myself, how am I doing right now? It didn't even occur to me.
What did your burnout look like, Rachel? I feel like that's important to share. For me, obviously, I had MS, right? That was my knock on the door that I needed to pause. But what did burnout look like for you?
Yeah,
I think a lot of people don't even know.
Yeah, and I think there's a myriad of symptoms and things like that. So in my case, I was working in the corporate world. I was working at Google in San Francisco, and I just suddenly I kind of started second guessing myself. So there was a self-doubt creeping in because I was getting the outside feedback that I wasn't doing well, and so I would try harder. So to me, it looked like, well, my boss answers her emails at 3 p.m. on Sunday. I should probably answer my emails on Sunday, which means I probably should be aware of them on Saturday to get them going on Sunday, to get them in the inbox and ready to go. So for me, I was a little bit like reactive from the outside world. And I put the pressure on myself. No one was telling me to answer emails. In fact, my boss was saying, hey, you don't have to answer me. I just want to get these out now because I know that's what I need. And I think I didn't have the internal locus of control, which is the technical psychological term. If anyone knows psychology, it's really your orientation of who is empowered internally. Is it you and is it yourself, or the externally, which is the external locus of control? And for me, I don't think I didn't have an internal locus of control because I looked outside myself for approval, for yes, that's okay, Rachel, for the good girl.
People pleasing.
And people pleasing. Yeah, that's the approval side. And then I could get stuff done because I was super, like I was a smart rat, as my old coach would tell me. You're a smart cookie. So I could figure it out and I could get by. Like I could kind of like slide through the radar and like just look smart and act and say the right stuff. And that passed. Meanwhile, on the inside, I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I suck. I'm a failure. So there's like heavy critic mind going on. And I was a wreck. I was crying in my pasta dinners with my boyfriend at the time and really just felt helpless. I felt like a victim too. And I didn't understand that I could really be different about that. I just didn't have the training, which is now what I help my clients with, is how to get out of drama and be empowered.
Yeah. And I mean,
I
just
want to
that
be like that.
awareness, just that awareness. It's like we don't know what we don't know. And if we've been conditioned to be this way, like we learn from the best, right? Our parents and, and other people in the world. And we're taught that this is the way to be. And so, like you said, you didn't even know. And it's usually the breakdown,
And then you think it's
right?
you, because
Yeah.
it's got to be
You should
me,
just try
because
harder. You should
clearly
just
I'm
try
the only
harder.
one in trouble here, and everyone else seems to be fine. So we start to talk ourselves into whatever the situation is. We like, well, yeah, clearly it's me. I'm the fuck.
Yeah.
And so to me, the pause. So this is what this is why it's my mission, I think, in that I embraced it. And that if I hadn't taken that break and been like, you know what, screw Google, I'm gonna go find a new job. Who needs them or whatever? And then I would have gone to another job, probably some crazy good, awesome job, and the same thing would have happened. The same thing would have played out. I would have been feeling the self-doubt creep in. It probably would be worse because it'd be a new job. So I'd feel even more unstable or not as solid.
Yes.
I'd been at Google a couple of years when this happened. So I took this 3-month unpaid break. I didn't have any training in any of the stuff that I know now. I just knew something had to change. And that was my burnout wake up call. And I did go back to Google because I realized, holy cannoli, it's not Google. Oh my, like I'm the common denominator, and I'm just not aligned. That's it. I'm just not aligned. So I went to a new role that was aligned with what I like to do and my strengths. I was a good relationship person. I could explain technical concepts. I could really leverage like networks and relationships. And so that was sales to me. And that was like the working translation of my strengths in a corporate setting. And I stayed on, and I went and got a job in a new team, and I stayed on that team for 10 years, and I have no regrets. It was amazing. People were great, and my whole life changed because I changed.
I
And
think you
so,
brought up something super. I just, yeah, I want to highlight that. Like
mm,
so many of us, it's like we'll just try harder, even though maybe it's telling you, right? Your breakdown is telling you you're out of alignment, right? And it sounds like you didn't have that realization until you took the pause, that 3 month
yeah,
pause, and you were like, oh, wait a minute here. It's not about putting a what do they call it, a square peg in a round hole, right?
yeah, yeah,
Like, what if this just isn't a good match? And so that, I mean, just that alone it's so important that we take that pause time, that downtime, reflection time, whatever you guys want to call it, so you can get that guidance, right? So you can get that soul guidance, that heart guidance, whatever you guys want to call it, right? Because that's what it sounds like happened, right?
yeah.
You were
And
forced to
yeah,
pause and you got that guidance, like, hey, this isn't the position for me.
yeah. I talk about the 5 signs you know you need a pause, because to me, they
Tell
all
us.
happen to me.
Yeah,
And even if you have, all right, so let me go through them. It's 5
please.
signs. If you, and count how many you personally have as you listen to this, so wherever you are in the world, right? So the first one is, you used to love what you do and now you loathe it. Like you're just not that excited anymore. It's like, eh. So that's the first sign. The second sign is your boss tells you it's not working out in whatever way, shape, or form. It might be just a feedback review or in the hallway talk with someone where it's like, maybe this isn't the thing that you need to do. It was just kind of like a subtle nudge. The third sign is you need a technology intervention. In my case, it was my friend saying, hey, Rachel, do you really need to be on your laptop while we're all sitting here talking at like a Sunday gathering? I was like, oh, right, yes. So technology intervention. The fourth one is there's a challenge, whatever is on your heart or in your environment. Maybe it's a health challenge. Maybe it's a financial challenge, a relationship challenge. It's just up and you're up in it. And then the opposite of that is the fifth sign, which is an opportunity. So maybe there's one knocking at your door that's something you've always wanted to do. Maybe a hobby, or maybe just a trip like you're dying to do and you just haven't taken the plunge, or you haven't planned it in a way that would work for you. And so those are the 5 signs. So for me, I had all 5. But my thought is, if how, like, just tally up how many are you experiencing right now, and even if it's one or one or more, then that's time for a pause, in my opinion. And
Yeah,
that doesn't like anything other than an intentional shift in behavior for you.
yeah. So I'm hearing too, like pausing. So first of all, I was just thinking for myself, which of those, and
Mm.
I think I shared with you a little earlier, and many of you who've been with me for a little while, the past couple of months, right, I've been having this bigger GI issue come up for deeper healing. And so that was telling me there was something else that I needed to, something else was lurking that I needed to pay attention. And then so interesting. The other day I was asking the question, we were going out to the East Coast for my husband's dad's 90th birthday in December. And I was like, are we meant to tack on something else out there? I mean, we're in Hawaii and we're already going to be over there. And all of a sudden Costa Rica popped in and I was like, oh my God, I was supposed to go in 2010. And so I was like, okay, let's tack on that, right? Let's pause longer. Because, we all know family vacations aren't typically a pause, right? I mean, let's be honest.
They're the like, talk about choice. Yeah, they're the ones that we are getting reminded of all of the things that we do need to work through in our own way. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love for everyone, because we're doing this live, to go ahead and put in the chat, like, what are your signs that you're needing a pause? And while you guys are doing that, like, Rachel, I just want to talk a little bit about, there are different pause can look different. It doesn't have to necessarily mean you're going to take 3 weeks off of work like you did.
Oh, yeah.
Unpaid, right? So what are some different ways that people can pause while they're sharing in the chat? Yeah.
Great question. So yeah, and we're all going to have a different thing. So I go through many different types of pauses. So what I did with a long pause, right? Anything over 2 or 3 weeks is what I would call a long pause. A forced pause is when you're laid off. There's daily pauses, which could be a breath, literally one moment of time. It could be journaling if you're like that. And then nature is a great pause. You could go out walking the dog. You could get the mail, look outside the window at a plant or a tree or a bird. And so there's all kinds of different ways you can do a pause. And the key is, again, it's about what works for you and finding that. And then it's also just not like, don't let anything stop you that's like, there's no time constraints. So again, you could do a one breath, or you could, take a year and travel the world. You can do anything. Activity, it's not bound to activity. So you decide, what is it that maybe I want to do that would feel good? What brings you joy? And then finances, right? You don't have to, pauses can be free. You can go to your library and hang out and find a new book. It could be absolutely anything. And to me, that's power of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, pause, it sounds like, to put it in perspective, it can be, I love the idea of daily, right? So I think everyone really needs to think about how to have daily pauses built in.
Digital device pausing. I just want to throw that one in. I can't believe I forgot that, but that's, you deciding to put 5-minute limits on your Instagram or
yes, I just put a limit. Yep. I just put a limit on myself to only check email 3 times a day. And WhatsApp, because I have a WhatsApp group. I can't say I'm at 100% yet. I just made this goal the other day, but that's one of the things I'm implementing for sure. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And, in terms of daily pausing, I think what mine looks like, and I think it's always helpful for us to share, to give people some kind of a model, and you can share too, Rachel. Like, for me at this point in my life, when I wake up in the morning, I can't just get on the hamster wheel, right? Like, I have so much past trauma that is still, like, as much healing as I've done around it, there's still a part of me that wakes up in this, oh my God, I got all this to do. I got to get all this done and I better do it perfect. And I have to talk to her, right? So I have to take some time to talk to that part of me. So in the morning for me, I drink my coffee, I journal, I do some soothing, I check in and ask for some guidance from I call my unseen divine team and my soul. Journaling is included in that if I didn't say that. So I take about an hour in the morning just for me. I love that. Just for me. And I know that might sound a lot to some people listening. So maybe you start small, right? Maybe, but I think morning is important, Rachel, don't you? To connect with yourself first thing in the morning.
Yeah, research has told us too that the most it's productive people in general have some kind of morning routine, which could be anything. But yes, for me, I'll tell you a little bit about it, where I also have I try to do a 15-minute mindful activity. It can include journaling. right now I'm doing a Course of Miracles. So like I'm on lesson, I don't know, 140 or something. That's like a year plus long of lessons, and then you meditate on them multiple times a day or something like that. I'm not like a great student, but I'm an okay student, and giving myself permission to just take it as I can.
Good enough. Good enough.
Yeah. And then I also don't, and again, I think I don't beat myself up when I don't do it. So if I'm just not feeling it, I don't do it. And I know there's another day, I'll do it again. I'll do it another time. So to me, that's important. And I have a book, Pause the Journal, that came out in 2022, a 90-day journaling practice to intentionally create your dreams. So I really love journaling. So to
I do
me,
too.
I'm
I
not
do
always
too.
into it, but I know it's a way for me to process something that I'm not necessarily going to process it in that way unless I journal.
Yeah,
That's
me
helpful.
too. Me too. A lot of people come through my door and are like, no journaling. And I'm like, okay. And I think a lot of people have this perfection built in, right? Of course,
Yeah.
where it's like, I got to journal perfect. Like it's, and then you don't want to do it because, or, oh, I'm saying the same thing every day. I'm like, I'm a broken record. I say the same shit almost every
Yeah.
day. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, right? Like what matters is that I'm getting it down on paper and yeah, checking in with myself, and my part.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love that. And like the thing I'll add too is to be curious, right? So how do you know what you like? Well, maybe I don't like journaling, but what if I was curious to say, well, what if I tried it? Or what if I, spoke on recorded my voice instead of journaling, but I spoke for a minute and I just said something. Because a lot of times when we're held back and resist something, it's fear-based. And
totally.
there's beliefs behind it. There's those unconscious beliefs that are kind of running the show. So unless we get curious, we don't, that's the shift. And the pause to me is the invitation to explore, whether it's that or just doing a nice little pause for yourself.
I'm just thinking like, this is awful, but my mother used to go and like, I'd hide my journal and she'd find it. And so I know like a lot of people too are like, no journaling. I'm afraid someone's going to read it. But I like the audio. I like the audio as well.
Yeah, you could do an
So,
audio, and I mean that's a pretty common fear, and so I think it's just about, well, what's worth it to you? What are you worth? Is it worth trying it to just see? And if they read it, they read it.
yeah.
Not on
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
So it's tough, and it takes courage. Like I think a lot of this is, I have a whole chapter about courage in the book because and this third book that just came out, by the way, I want to mention it because it's my spiritual awakening story. I think that's important for your audience. I had never shared it before. Like this happened 10 plus years ago, and I shared it 2 weeks ago publicly.
Wow.
So
And what's it called?
be a
What's the book
while
called?
to kind of warm up. What's that?
What is the book called?
Well, the book is called Leading with Self-Awareness from the Inside Out. And it's a collaboration with Changing Work. So we're on Amazon, and I have one chapter in that story in that book called Beyond Myself. We all wrote one chapter, but it's leaders who all want to make work more conscious. So all of you, I'm sure here in your group listening, we all want to make things more conscious, right? We want the world to kind of wake up like and evolve. I'm guessing that's what we all want, right?
Well, everyone here wants that. Everyone here probably wants that, or they wouldn't be here. But yeah, we know it's shifting on the planet right now for sure. I think that, the level of consciousness is expanding, and ultimately, yes, I think everyone here knows we're here to evolve. So yeah, absolutely. And this pausing is necessary for it. And I think you also brought up nature. So I want to touch on that as well.
Yeah.
I feel nature is, one of those, you just go out and it can help dissolve some of that stress that we all can be carrying. I think getting outside more is really essential right now.
I just I felt my whole body relax as you shared that.
Yeah.
Imagine being outside. It's very true. Yeah, that's a super great soother.
Well, and even if you can't get outside for some reason, like I have some clients that are too just physically not well, that they can't either be outside or they can't walk outside. So even just sitting by an open window or an open door and looking out and hearing the sounds, right? I think, yeah, and just breathing, like just being and breathing and looking and listening to nature, I think is a pretty big.
I think of something as you say that, where one of the really good ways to do that is even looking at a photo. Like look at something that's a joy, it brings you joy as a nature environment, whether it's a picture or something on your phone. It's like a photo of someone or a
Flowers, yeah,
calendar.
animals.
There's soothing application for that too, and your brain has more sensory to know it's outside, but literally we're very visual as humans, and just even seeing the picture generally can be very helpful, because you can imagine yourself in there, you can visualize, you can sniff the flowers that would be there even though you're not with them.
Yeah, get some essential oils.
And some
And smell
essential oils.
smell
Those are
smell those if you can't be outside and actually smell the flowers. And I'm looking out at the green right now as we're talking. And my doors are open. So I'm blessed with that. But if you're not, those are some other ways to do that. I think another way that's really helpful, and I think you incorporated this or talked about this already, but I want to point on it just again, is that moving our bodies, right? We're so used of sitting and computer or phone and all that stuff. I think one of my favorite ways to pause, as long as I'm not on my phone, is to be out walking. I love to go out walking in nature.
Yeah, walking. I mean, that's the key, is what is it that works for you? So for
Yeah.
you, Tanya, it's walking. That's a gorgeous thought.
Used to run, but not anymore. Have a knee injury, but yeah, walking for me is very meditative, and as long as I'm not on my phone.
Yeah, me too. It also helps with digestion.
It does. I'm so glad that you brought that up.
There's a
Absolutely.
really good connection with that. 15 minutes, or even, 15 minutes is all you need. But if you walk after
Yeah.
dinner, it's really helpful.
And finding the time in your schedule that works best for you, with these things that we're talking about. Again, I feel like morning is really the best time to, even if it's 5 minutes, to connect with yourself. But,
Mhm.
some people like to move their body after work. Some people like to go at lunch. I'm a morning mover. Right. So that's what works for me. So it's not so much, it's about
Yeah.
how does it work for you, and giving yourself that permission and that time, right, to
And it's the
pause in whatever way
quality.
it looks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned play.
Yes.
I think a lot of times people think pausing is just like resting and doing nothing. And
Checking
yes,
out. Yeah.
yeah. And I
That's the
think that's
old
a
way to
part of
think
it.
about it. That's the
Yeah,
old way. So that's like
yeah.
the paradigm we're talking about. I call it the pause paradox. It's not okay to play. It's not okay to take a break, because we'll look like slackers. You'll look like a slacker. You'll fall behind. All the things that our brains would love to just fill our heads with, right?
Inner critics. Yep. Yep. Play is one of those things that I feel that most of the people I work with, at least, playing is something that we just had a conversation the other day that someone said, I don't even know what I like to do for fun.
Yeah.
And I was like, I get it. I get it. Like when we've been so caught up, and many of us from a very young age, even if it looked like we were playing, I'm just going to use myself as an example. I grew up in a very violent, chaotic home. And so even though I might have been playing in my room, there was fighting going on. And was I really feeling the joy of it? Not so much.
Yeah.
Not so much. So not only like taking the time to play, but then actually, are you really feeling the joy of playing when you're doing it? I think is
Letting
important.
yourself, like that's the giving permission thing, right? That internal locus of control, like it's okay to play. It's okay to be just as is, and play is one of the, I mean, I think of a few things. So when you're feeling exhausted or depleted, burnout, it's like play isn't even on your radar, because you're just too tired. And it's like, oh yeah, I could do that. So it's like a second or third afterthought. So I think it's important to bring that up as an idea. And then I also would like to share that play is how we learn.
Yeah.
When we see little kids on the playground, they're learning agility. They're learning how to communicate with other kids so they can feel like they can comment or say something. And that's exactly kind of the metaphor we have as adults. We can be on the jungle gym, but we might fall and scrape ourselves, but still play is super nourishing, and it's one of the most natural states of being. But as adults, we just get conditioned out of it. And so it's our job to kind of remember, oh yeah, I could actually do something that brings me joy. What would that look like?
And creativity, right? Like that creativity and imagination that comes with the play. And, I think I had a client say the other day, she had a belief that play wasn't productive.
yeah,
And I was like, let's just go ahead and talk about that and shift that, because as a child, right, play, that is our job as a child, is to play, right? It's to play and be, and that is productive. So bringing that into adulthood now, so many people say, oh, I can't go and do that fun thing until all the work is done. Well, the work is never all going to be done. Let's just be honest, right? Like there's always going to be more to do. And so if we allow ourselves to play every day, even if the work's not all done, it's actually going to open up more creative flow, right? And it actually improves productivity. I mean, research actually shows that, right? That the same things with taking naps, right? Naps and play, like it actually increases productivity. So for all of those people out there that they're superhumans, like play isn't productive, it's like, no, it is. It actually really is. And it's necessary.
It's very important. And it's, again, like it is the easiest way to learn things, a lot like giving yourself permission to play. And that's the challenge, I think, in a world that's always on, or you feel like you got to show up in a way that's really serious and responsible. And they're all beliefs. I think you're spot on with that. And I think it's each of our jobs to kind of just get curious about them. Be like, well, what is it all about this play thing that's kind of got me all like wrapped up thinking I can't do it, or it's not for me, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and I love that. So, I invite everybody to think about, you know,
Yeah.
what what are those limiting beliefs and fears that could keep you from pausing, right? Whether it's time to rest, whether it's time to heal, whether it's time to play. Those are all going to go under the pause umbrella now. And what are those things? Get curious, like Rachel said, right? I always say compassion and curiosity. And what are those things that we're telling ourselves that are keeping us from taking those pauses, right? To be able to do that. And we really have to work with those parts of ourselves. I don't know what tools you've used to be able to do that, Rachel, but maybe you have something.
So I can tell you exactly what I've done. I've done
Yeah.
it a lot, and it worked really well. So this is for my training at the Wright Graduate University. But make a list of all the rules in your head, whatever it is. Right? It's not okay to play. Playing isn't productive. Whatever. Like we're already thinking them, but just get them on paper.
Yep.
Piece of paper, whatever. That can count as journaling too, by the way. So you look at the list, and so each of those is a statement. It's a rule that you've conditioned in your own brain, which you follow, whether it's 100% or part of it, or hold you back. So those are all like, so if you take each one then and you go, well, what's the belief behind that? You'll come up with the unconscious block that has been serving that one-liner rule in your head. So for me, I'll just make an example. So for me, play, I never really had a problem with play, but I do think it can waste time. So historically, play is wasted time. So that's my rule. Play wastes time. So my belief is, for me, the limiting beliefs are about yourself, others, or the world, right? So for me, the limiting belief is it's not okay to be myself and play. It's not okay to play. I'm not okay, period. I'm not enough.
What did you have to, so what did you have to say to that part of you who believed that?
So first you have to recognize, you have to catch it. You have to just know that it's there, which is the powerful exercise of writing them down. And then you kind of shine the light on it. You're like, oh, well, it's just because I think I'm not okay if I play. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm going to fall behind, like all these other things that are going on.
Yeah. Whose belief is this? I like to ask that too. Whose belief is this, right?
Whose belief is this? Yeah. So it's my mom's. Oh, she's the one who told me it wasn't okay. Like I had to be within 5 minutes of dinner or else I wasn't eating, whatever. So maybe it's someone else's belief, but I'm now inheriting that unless I change it. Because again, it's all on autopilot. It's like our unconscious. So once you have it on paper and you can understand the limiting belief behind it, you can switch it. You can now come up with an opposite belief, an empowering belief. Oh, I am okay when I play. That's my new belief. Okay, that's what I got to orient to. And that's all of this isn't easy, right? Like no one just sits down and snaps your finger, then you're off doing something different. But it
Mm,
starts with you trying that,
yeah.
and that's you being curious. And so then you can say, well, okay, I'm okay. What would it look like if I'm okay to play? What if I like put my pencils in a different arrangement by color? Maybe I'll start there. That's play, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something that brings you joy, and it's not necessarily work. So, we just
Starting
start small,
small.
wherever you are.
Start small. I love that you said that. Because it's taken me a long time to get to where I am today. I mean, I used to work a full-time job as an OT and a part-time job as an OT. And yeah, I mean, I worked a lot. I was a workaholic. And then, then it was all social, and there was no pausing. There was no space in my schedule at all.
Yeah, and I think that
Um,
you're like that's like a lot of us, right?
yeah,
Like just think about your own situations, because in our world, like the rule is it's not okay to pause, period.
yeah, yeah.
For at least the type A overachievers that at least I was. And so you just keep going. You just fill your time. It's scary to stop. I call it
Yeah.
busifying in my book. My whole family was really good at it. My mom,
Oh
especially.
yeah. Oh yeah,
And we
totally.
learn it. And then it's like, well, what do you mean? I can't like not do anything. I can't go book a travel trip and just stay at home, God forbid. Right. So and then when we look back, we're like, oh, like zoom out and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I just was afraid.
Well, and not to beat ourselves up for it either, I think is really important to add because again, we typically learn this from our parents or society, culture, and I'm just kind of laughing. I'm thinking about my grandma who they were farmers, and not a lot of pause time, and anytime she would sit down to like watch TV, she would fall asleep within seconds. That is how exhausted this woman was, right?
Mhm,
Like she couldn't go to a movie. If she went to a movie, she'd be sleeping and snoring within seriously minutes.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so I learned from the best.
Yeah, you have a pro right there at doing
Yeah.
her thing. And like you were saying earlier, I want to bring it back to, the world is calling on us now in different ways, like you said. And so I do think even 50 years ago when I was born, like that was okay and pretty much the way the industrial era went.
Yeah.
We're not in
Yeah.
that anymore.
No,
We're in a
no.
crisis time where we have to do things differently, but we're not going to get there. And I say that as a collective if we aren't literally checking in on ourselves to see where we're at. And we learn the hard way sometimes, right? Like someone mentioned in the chat, like if you keep getting those signals, those signs, sometimes it adds up so much that we fall into a health issue, right? But like, what if I was actually aware to like pick it up a little bit before? And that's the skill, like that's hard, especially
Takes
if we've been
practice.
trained all our lives as the go-getters that we are. And that's
Yeah.
the challenge and the beauty as well in the pause.
Yeah, it takes practice. Pausing
It's
takes
all about
practice.
practice.
And
Yeah.
and we're never too old or too far gone, right? To begin doing this type of work.
Nope,
And
absolutely not.
every morning I have to tell that part of me, it's mine is it's safe now, right? It's safe now to pause. It's safe now to rest. It's safe now to play. It's not lazy, right? If I want to be done, you know, given my time zone and where I live, I typically see a client at 7 a.m. And then I take a pause and I go move
Yeah.
my body. And then I see some more clients, do some more work. And then typically, for me, I think, again, for everyone, we need to ask ourselves, what really does work for us? Maybe a 40-hour a week job, it doesn't, right? Like for me, I'm not a 40-hour a week girl. I'm just not. MS showed me that. And so it's okay to have your schedule and your pause work for you, right? I just really want to get that point across. Like we're not meant to do it like everybody else anymore. And we're not in the industrial revolution. I'm glad you said that too, Rachel, because times like that's actually what's
Newsflash.
crumbling. Yeah.
Newsflash. We're
Like
out
that's
of the
actually what's
industrial era,
crumbling.
everybody.
Yeah. That's actually like the old systems and structures from back then are actually shifting.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And that's a lot of what's happening right now, why there is so much disruption and terror, like challenge, in that the systems our entire lives and our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors have all had in their lives. And all of a sudden that they are breaking down. And it's scary. And it's like, wow, if if we don't figure ourselves out, it's not going to work. We won't work unless we work on ourselves.
No, we can't keep doing things the old way. So for you in your life right now, Rachel, we were talking about pausing and then doing that so we can be more in flow. And so for you, like what does flow look like for you in your life? Like, I
Yeah,
think it's good to give examples of that because many of us, I mean, I am now, but way back, I had when people said be in flow, like, what the hell does that mean? Like, I wouldn't.
yeah. No, let me share this because this isn't in any of my books, but I do teach on this, and I go back to the science of flow, which is, I'm going to get a little scholarly here, academic. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is someone, he has a TED Talk on flow, which is his research. And so what it really is, and what I think what it is for me, is when challenge meets my skill level. And my challenge and my, like, whatever skill I'm in, if my challenge is good enough, or like meets it in a way where it's flow, then I'm in the flow, which actually is a state we enter where it feels like time slows down, right? Or you feel like you don't remember when you started because you're so in it. And what's really going on, and this is the science part, is that our brain is challenged in a way that nothing else is really computing, and that's why it feels like time stops. Isn't that cool? Like, I just love that. So if you're out of flow, either the skill is too much or too little, that our challenge either exceeds or doesn't meet that criteria. And this has to do with burnout, by the way, because when we're burned out, it's either our challenge is too high, but our skills don't meet it, or our skills are the challenge is too low, but our skills are way too high. And that's all it is. But for me, what flow is when I bring in challenge to meet the skills I have. So that might mean taking extra projects on. Might mean learning something new that I'm enjoying, because the tasks in my role, and I'm thinking of my time at Google, like I had more capacity. I could do more than just the things I had on my plate. But a lot of people resist that because they're like, oh, now I got to work more. I don't want to do that, or whatever it is that we have. So to me, flow is when I feel joy because I'm in the moment. I row. I'm a rower. I row every morning. I try to, and I'm here in Florida. There's like dolphins and manatees. It's amazing with a beautiful team. And flow to me is kind of the analogy to be in that boat. Like, it's hard work, but I feel challenged. My skills are there, and I feel that flow when I'm doing that, or when I'm coaching someone. Even then, when I'm not in flow is when I'm outside that zone, and that's all it is. The zone. That's what we kind of think of.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm thinking, like, for myself, I love that definition. And for me, what it's a feeling, right? It's a feeling for me. Like you said, I feel happy or content. I feel maybe excited, if it's a work thing that I'm working with. Peace. There's a peace though, too. Even though I might be doing something, it doesn't feel like I'm going against the river, right? It feels like, I don't know, it just feels like, yeah, even though it might be something, I'm creating something new or whatever it is, I don't know. Yeah, it feels, yeah, enjoyable, easy.
Flow. That's the zone.
Yeah, the zone. So that's going to be different for everybody, but those are some places to start. Like, how are you feeling emotionally? I think we're going to bring it back to that emotional intelligence, which we touched on a little earlier and before the recording, right? Checking in with your emotions. That's going to let you know if you're in flow or not. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Rachel, we could go on forever. I know. Such good stuff. Such good stuff. I want to open up to see if anybody has a question. We got a little bit of time. And then, so if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand and then I'll unmute you. Or if you want to put it in the chat, that's fine. Any questions? And then while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, you have a free gift for us, Rachel, called The 3 Keys to Turn Burnout into Thriving Guidebook. Can you tell us what? I'm going to put it in I'm going to put the link in the chat. And then if you could tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah. So I have a guidebook. It's a PDF, and I'd love you to have it. It's called 3 Keys to Transform Burnout into Thriving as a Leader. And if you go to this website, just put your name in an email. You'll get an email with the link to download it. And what I talk about in there are the emotions, these 5 primary feelings that we can all name to start to train ourselves and develop the EI muscle, the emotional intelligence muscle, so that we are present and that we are we're in the here and now, and that we connect our mind and our body a little more. And I also talk about burnout and why if we don't feel things, it's really hard to navigate it. So it's all connected. Emotions are really what's in this guidebook to be more calm and confident and mentally clear, so you can learn how to sustain yourself as well. So that's the guidebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I put the link in the
Yes, there
chat
it is.
for those
Thank
that are
you.
live. And then for those that are listening to the replay, it will be below this video. And I'm just feeling like, yeah, just a reminder. It's like everything Rachael and I have talked about, but I'm going to recommend that, after you're done listening to this, right, take a look at your schedule, right? So Rachael and I were talking about, on daily, like, where do you need to build pauses into your schedule, whether it's rest or healing or playtime? We touched on all of those. So I'm going to invite everyone to look at their schedules and do that, as well as invite everyone to write down what are those limiting beliefs and fears that Rachael and I were talking about, right? Whether it's not safe to pause, it's you're lazy if you pause, all those different things. And then, what are those empowering beliefs you called it? I call them truths that you need to activate so that you can actually show up for your pause, your pauses in your schedule.
You can actually show up for that. It'd be amazing, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Those are really good tips. And just start with one of them, I think, too, because it's like,
Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yes, we touched on it, but let's say it again. That's starting small, because if you have been lacking pause, as I was when I first began this journey back in 2004, like, you start small, right? You start small, and then you're able to build on that as you build your pause muscle.
Yes.
So Laura said, not so much a question, but a very good reminder for me. I have 2 little kids and also work part-time. Mondays are challenging days because my husband is out of the house all day and I rely on my parents for support. So to remember to pause is very useful, and it can be play. It doesn't need to be such a rigid idea of pause. Thank you. Awesome.
Exactly.
That was helpful, Laura.
That's so key, actually, because I think we get hung up as thinking it's got to be a certain way, or it's, the way that you did it last Tuesday.
Yeah.
No, not at all, actually. And it can be more playful in that it's improv, it's spontaneous. It's about what works for you in the moment right now. Hey, if you need that breather, go outside and get the mail. If you need to take the trash out, kill 2 birds with 1 stone, you do that too. And to me, that's nourishment, and that's about being the curious cat you can be. Yep, love it.
Yeah, the outside the box, right? That we don't have to do it the same every time. And even when you build in your pause breaks in your day, you might, one of the things I do is at the end of the day when I'm done working, I have about a half hour to an hour of pause time. And what I do is I check in and I ask myself, what is it that I need for my pause right now? Do I need to journal? Do I need to get in the pool? Do I need to, do something more restful or something more playful? So I think allowing ourselves to have that, again, choice, right? And not to, it's got to be this way, right? That black or white. Laura says, love that. I don't have that transitional pause time. And I really felt that today. Never thought about transitional pause in this way. Yeah. A lot of us are just going, right? Rachael, I don't know about you, but I used to go from one thing to the next. It was like, boom, 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 boom.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I love that you brought that up, Laura. Transitions are essential for that intentional shift in behavior, because that's when you get to decide to do something different. Whether it's get the water, get the glass of water. It doesn't have to take a long time, but as long as you're present for it, and as long as you're intentional, right? I'm going to get this water. This is me. I'm getting out of my chair. Holy cow. I'm moving. Whoa. And then, we just do it. And it's just about whatever it is that works for you. And transition add a wonderful opportunity, because it's a way to kind of get grounded in the moment for whatever it is coming next.
Yeah, beautiful. And Amanda's got a question. She says, how do you handle knowing you're being guided to pause, like a big pause, but you feel all the pressure of work and personal things on agenda that make the big pause feel impossible to do? So why don't you answer that first, Rachael?
Yeah. So a couple things. So how do you know you're guided to do anything, right? I mean, there's all kinds of questions that come up for me when I think about that. So I think having being curious is the first initial way I would go about it. Just be curious. It doesn't mean you go do it. And maybe it's about timing, right? Like maybe you do want to do that, but it's not going to be this year. Maybe I don't know what it would be, but I'm going to put that on my radar. Like maybe that's something I can consider at some point.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's like a black or white answer. And I think we love to compartmentalize things as humans. We love labels, right? Our brains are like, what is it? Give me an answer. I need it red, white, black, whatever.
Not just an answer, the right answer.
And the right answer. Yeah, totally.
You got to have the right answer.
So the thing is, there are pressures. There's reality. There's work. If we're the primary breadwinner and we need to make money, then probably not going to change anything right now. However, I can put steps in place. I can start talking to people, maybe thinking about what they're doing and just getting new ideas or input. And I do think this is where journaling comes in and can be a really handy tool, because your brain will be bubbling things up that you may or may not even realize. The brain processes things different as we write versus when we speak or read. So to me, the long answer, that short answer is you don't know, but I would say you can choose to be curious. And that's the pause. The pause is, even though I'm not changing anything right now, my intentional shift in behavior is to listen to myself. Yeah. And just think about what maybe could be different right now. What would you say there, Tanya?
Right, because we don't always, this is one thing that's coming in, like, and it goes off of what you said, that sometimes we're getting guidance to do something, but there's also divine timing.
Yeah.
And so, and I know Amanda is one of my clients, and so I also know her history. I know a lot about her. So Amanda, I can just add to that right now, and not just for Amanda, but for everybody, your body, you got to listen to not just emotions, but the body. Your body's letting you know if you need a big pause. And a big pause for you, again, I know Amanda's been sick the past few weeks, so your body has been telling you to slow down, right? Yep. And so giving that permission and letting work know, and again, I had MS, I get it. Like I had to have something really bad in order to have the excuse, right? So I had such a strong superhuman, people pleaser, perfectionist, that I had to have something really big to have a good excuse to pause, right? So the MS made me take a big pause. And then I tried, not necessarily. I tried to go back to work way too soon when I got diagnosed. And so then I got a really bad colon infection and couldn't be at work. Like literally couldn't, it was contagious.
Literally had to stay home.
I literally was forced to stay home for not just 1 month, but 2 months. Right. So, so we have to remember that as well, that our bodies will keep turning up the volume if we're not listening. Amanda's going to get a bigger pause at the end of this month. She's coming to one of my retreats. So, but yes, we can continue talking about that. But that was a great question. I think that
great question and so relevant. Yeah. So thank you for that, because I think that all of us encounter that, I think, sooner or later. And it's
I think we do. Whether it's being laid off from a job or whether it's a health crisis, I do feel like everybody has a big pause at some turning point in their life, and sometimes more than one. I've had 2 or 3 of those big pauses. So, Rachel, it was great. Thank you for all of your pause wisdom today, and for your free gift. And again, just want to remind everybody that start small, like look where you are right now and expand on that, even if it's just squeezing in some daily pauses. And some of you listening might be guided to make a big pause, and maybe that's a few months out, or maybe it's right now because your health is making you do that. So it takes courage, right, Rachel?
It takes courage and the ability to trust yourself.
Oh boy. Yeah.
It's a whole nother podcast topic, but
yeah, no,
I'm working on that one personally a lot right now. So I get that.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think all of us face is we were taught not to trust ourselves and ignore our bodies, ignore our emotions. And now we're coming back to that. We're being called back to that, right? Living, I like to call it living from soul versus ego, right?
Yeah.
So awesome. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, everyone who's here live today and everybody who's listening to the replay. Yes, thank you so much. And just a reminder that everyone here is a leader, whether you think you are or not. So feel free to share this important, we'll call it a pausecast today, a pausecast with those in your life, because here's the deal. Everyone on the planet right now pretty much needs to learn this pause skill. If we don't,
it's a skill.
It is
total skill as you're learning, right? Like you don't just do it. It's like, what am I going to do? I don't know if I'm okay. Guess what?
Takes time.
That's what we're working on. It's all good. You can do it.
Yeah, it takes time and it takes practice. Like with anything, right? It's building that pause muscle that so many of us have been conditioned not to do, not to take. So
yes. So think positive.
Oh, love it.
Couldn't resist. Sorry. It's like totally full of puns. And it's late.
Oh, Rachel, I love it. I love it. So it's wonderful to have you here again today. Thank you for your
Wonderful to be here.
wisdom.
Thank you for having me. And I wish you so much success. I'm so excited for what you're working on too. You're doing a lot of really good work here, Tanya. So thank you. And thank you for everyone who joined us today.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, and I just want to commend everyone who's here for doing the work. Like we know that this isn't easy. We know this is challenging. And, so we also know that you're capable and that you've got the courage, or, you wouldn't be here listening to this. So start small and expand, and hope to see you guys very soon. Thank you.
Awesome.
Namaste.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Rachel.
Bye-bye.